Have you ever had the feeling of looking at a Scorpio and realizing there is something there you can never completely reach? As if you were standing before a half-open door. You see shadows, feel the presence, almost touch the truth, but it always slips away. They say Scorpio is intense. They say it's mysterious. Some even say it's too complicated. But what if I told you the problem isn't complexity? It's depth. Scorpio was not made to be read like an open book. It is an ocean at midnight. The more you try to see the bottom, the more you realize the immensity is staring back at you. There are emotions they never say, battles no one sees, internal changes happening in silence while the world believes nothing is going on. And that is exactly why so many people fail when trying to define them. Because Scorpio is not a simple answer. It is a process. It is transformation. It is death and rebirth happening inside the same heart. Maybe you know a Scorpio who seems cold, distant, almost impossible to reach. Or maybe you know the one who loves with an intensity that frightens, that invades, that marks forever. How can the same sign be two such different forces? How can someone hide so much and feel so much at the same time? The truth is that there are much deeper reasons behind this enigma. Reasons that almost no one dares to admit. Reasons that explain the silence, the penetrating gaze, the need for control, the difficulty in trusting, and that constant feeling that there is always something unrevealed. Today, you are going to cross the surface. You will understand why Scorpio builds walls, but also creates bonds that are impossible to break. Why they test, observe, retreat, and still love with their whole soul. And most importantly, you will discover the reason that completely changes the way you see this sign. The fifth reason, the one that usually makes people pause for a few seconds, take a deep breath, and finally understand someone who once seemed indecipherable. If you are a Scorpio, get ready to recognize yourself in parts you may never have put into words. If you live with one, get ready to understand attitudes that have confused you, hurt you, or fascinated you. But one thing is certain. After this video, you will never look at Scorpio the same way again. So stay with me, because what you are about to discover is not only about astrology, it is about the deepest part of the human soul. They say every Scorpio is the same. Intense, mysterious, impossible to decipher. But that is only the surface. The truth is that there are entire universes hidden behind Scorpio's gaze, layers so deep that even they themselves cannot always explain. Some carry storms, others silent oceans. And today, you are going to discover who is really standing in front of you. In this video, you will cross the veils of Scorpio. I will reveal 5 deep reasons that explain why this sign seems like a living enigma, a mystery that few can touch. Each reason opens a different door of the Scorpio soul. And the 5th is the one that usually makes people whisper. So that was it. If you are a Scorpio, if you love one, or if you have ever tried to understand this heart that seems to feel more than it should, stay with me until the end, because some part of this story will find you. Before we dive into these deep waters, leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows more people to learn how to read what cannot be seen. Now take a deep breath and come. The heart that burns in silence. There is something about Scorpio's heart that few people notice at first glance. They don't advertise what they feel. They don't raise emotional flags. They don't announce their pains or their loves as someone seeking witnesses. But that does not mean there isn't a fire inside. Quite the opposite. A Scorpio is like a volcano that has learned to look like a mountain. On the outside, firm, controlled, even serene. On the inside, magma in motion, memories boiling, feelings that never truly rest. They enter a place and seem calm, observant, sometimes even distant. People may think they were unaffected, that they didn't care, that it meant nothing. But no one imagines how much they recorded. Every word, every gesture, every shift of energy. Everything goes down to a deep place where Scorpio stores what they feel, a territory where almost no one is granted permission to enter. Some signs express pain by crying, others by talking. Scorpio transforms sadness into strength, transforms rejection into independence, transforms fear into control. But the emotion remains there, alive, breathing beneath the surface. That is why they often seem indecipherable. You look and see nothing happening, while inside, an entire universe is rearranging itself. And there is a second type of Scorpio within that same fire. The one who lets sparks escape. The eyes reveal it. The intensity overflows. You feel when they love, feel when they are disappointed, feel when something has changed. But even then, you never see everything. Because even the most expressive Scorpio keeps an untouchable core, a sacred chamber of the soul that no one fully reaches. The contrast is powerful. One suffers in absolute silence. The other lets the world notice the earthquake. But both share the same secret. The depth of the feeling is always greater than the display. And here lies Scorpio's rarest gift. When they love, it is not shallow. It is not temporary. It is not light. It is visceral. It is spiritual. It is something that crosses lifetimes. But loving like this requires protection. Because those who feel so much can also be hurt too deeply. So they learn to be quiet. They learn to observe. They learn to keep the fire hidden, illuminating only those who truly deserve to come close. The challenge? Not to become a prisoner of their own fortress. Not to let the fear of being hurt prevent the experience of being understood. Because, deep down, what this silent heart desires most is to find someone capable of hearing the sound of the flames, even when there is no smoke. The invisible armor. If you look quickly, you might think Scorpio is naturally closed off, reserved, difficult, maybe even cold. But that reading is superficial. What you are seeing is not coldness. It is protection. Scorpio does not walk through life with their chest exposed. They learned, very early, that feeling intensely is a powerful gift, but also an enormous risk. So they build an armor. And the most impressive part? Almost no one realizes it's there. It is not a wall made of rejection. It is made of experiences, old disappointments, broken trust, moments when they offered their soul and received silence in return. Each memory becomes metal, each wound, an extra layer of defense. That's why when someone tries to get close, Scorpio does not react in a hurry. They observe, they test, they feel the energy behind the words. Because allowing someone to pass through this armor means giving access to what is most sacred to them. And here two very clear types of Scorpios appear. There is the one whose protection looks like distance. They keep a firm posture, calculated responses, emotions under surveillance. You can spend years beside them and still feel there is unexplored territory. It is not lack of interest. It is fear of reliving old pain. And there is the other type, the one who smiles, talks, comes closer, seems open to the world. But when you approach the center, you realize there are still locked doors. They let you into the house, but the key to the safe remains hidden. The contrast is subtle, yet deep. One protects by pushing away. The other protects by limiting. Both want to love. Both want to trust. But they need to be sure they will not be destroyed in the process. Because when Scorpio trusts, they do not give apart. They give everything. And losing everything after opening up is something their soul simply never forgets. The gift of this armor is the ability to perceive hidden intentions. Scorpio feels what was not said, reads between the lines, notices the smallest changes in behavior. They are rarely fooled for long. But the challenge is that always living prepared for war can prevent the experience of peace. Sometimes excessive protection distances them from exactly what they seek most, true connection. Deep down, behind the emotional steel, there is someone who wants to lower their guard. Someone who dreams of breathing in relief beside a person who is not a threat. But that requires courage. Because removing the armor means allowing others to see their most fragile parts. Their fears, their insecurities, their deep need to be loved in a real way. And few make it that far. But those who do, Discover a loyalty that does not break, a devotion that does not waver, a love that becomes shelter for a lifetime. Ocean or abyss. Scorpio's soul is water. But it is not that calm water that reflects the sky on a clear day. It is deep, dark, living water, full of currents that move even when the surface seems still. And this is exactly where the confusion is born. Because some people look at Scorpio and see a calm ocean. Others look and feel an endless abyss. Which one is the real one? The answer might surprise you. Both. There is the Scorpio who has learned to swim in the higher layers of their own emotions. They dive, yes, but they know how to come back up for air. They recognize the pain, understand the feeling, but maintain some control over the tide. This type develops an admirable strength. They can love deeply without disappearing inside the other person. They can suffer, but they use suffering as alchemy to grow. They look within and return wiser. But there is also the Scorpio who was born with a soul programmed for absolute immersion. This one does not touch the water. They sink. They go beyond words, beyond logic, beyond what can be explained. When they love, it becomes devotion. When it hurts, it becomes an internal storm. When they are disappointed, the whole world seems to lose its color. They feel in extremes because they live in depths few dare to reach. One learns from the sea. The other becomes the sea itself. And that is why understanding Scorpio can be so difficult. Because sometimes they seem too strong to be wounded, and at the same time too sensitive to survive certain truths. The gift here is enormous. Scorpio has an almost psychic ability to perceive hidden emotions. They pick up vibrations, shifts in energy, unspoken intentions. They feel the bottom of people. But the danger of this ability is clear. Whoever lives too long in the depths may forget what it is like to walk in the light. At times, Scorpio gets lost within their own waters. Thoughts spin like whirlpools. Memories return like tides that do not ask permission. And those on the outside see only silence. They do not see the monumental effort it takes to remain functional while an entire universe unfolds within. The contrast is brutal. There are days when Scorpio is a safe harbor, stable, firm, supporting everyone around them. And there are days when they desperately need someone to save them from themselves. But they rarely ask, because they fear seeming weak. They fear being misunderstood. They fear that no one will truly be able to dive with them. Deep down, the question echoing in their heart is simple. If I show how deep I am, will anyone stay? That is why sometimes they prefer to seem like a calm ocean. It is safer. But those who have the courage to go beyond the surface discover something unforgettable. They discover an immense, intuitive, transformative soul, capable of loving with a depth that changes destinies. The power of silence. Few signs master silence like Scorpio. For many, being silent means absence, discomfort, distance. But for Scorpio, it is language. It is in silence that they watch the world reveal itself without masks. It is there that people show who they truly are, believing no one is noticing. While everyone talks, Scorpio reads. Reads the tone of voice, the glance that shifts away, the pause between one sentence and another, the energy hidden behind the smile. Their silence is not empty. It is a laboratory of truths. There is the Scorpio who uses silence as strategy. They withdraw, grow quiet, almost motionless, and in that state they see beyond appearances. They understand emotional games before they even begin. They detect lies before they turn into stories. They feel the change in the wind before the storm arrives. For this type, speaking less is having more power. But there is also the other side. The Scorpio who stays quiet because inside them there are emotions too big to be translated. They even try to explain, but words feel small compared to the intensity of what they feel. So they keep it. And the more they keep, the more the world believes there is nothing there. Little do they know it is exactly the opposite. Inside that silence live memories, unspoken loves, old wounds, secret dreams, fears they never had the courage to confess. The contrast is almost cruel. On the outside, stillness. On the inside, explosions. The gift of this silence is sharp perception. Scorpio is rarely caught by surprise because they are always capturing invisible signals. They know the human shadows. And for that reason, they are rarely fooled for long. But the challenge is deep. The more they observe without speaking, the more they may feel separated from the world, as if they were always outside their own life, watching instead of participating. Sometimes silence protects. Other times, it imprisons. Because there comes a moment when the heart wants to be heard. It wants to be understood without having to scream. But Scorpio fears that, by breaking the silence, they will lose control. They fear revealing vulnerabilities that could be used against them. So they remain there, feeling, knowing, understanding, in silence. And those who live with them often wonder, what is going through their mind right now? The answer is simple and complex at the same time. A universe, ideas, analyses, memories, intuitions, all coexisting at a level so deep that they do not always find a way out. But when Scorpio finally speaks, when they speak, it is pure truth. No filter, no return, because every word has passed the test of time, observation, and soul. And maybe that is what makes their silence so powerful. It is never empty. It is always loaded with meaning. The reason that surprises everyone. After talking about intensity, armor, depth, and silence, many people still ask the same question. But after all, why is Scorpio so hard to understand? The answer seems simple, but it carries a force capable of completely turning the game around. Scorpio is hard to understand because they are never the same person for very long. While other signs build stable identities, Scorpio lives in constant inner movement. They are transformation. They are transmutation. They are the eternal process of dying to an old version and being reborn into a truer one. You may know a Scorpio today, and in a few months realize that something in them has changed profoundly. The way they love, react, trust, dream, not because they wanted to confuse you, but because they went through another cycle of rebirth. There is the Scorpio who clings to what they were, trying to maintain old ways of being. And there is the one who accepts metamorphosis and allows parts of their own personality to dissolve. One fights change, the other surrenders to it. But both carry the same essence, the need to evolve emotionally, whatever the cost. And that is what surprises people. You are not trying to understand a fixed point. You are trying to understand someone who is in permanent reconstruction. It is like trying to photograph a flame. When you think you captured the image, the shape of the fire is already different. The gift of this trait is extraordinary. Scorpio has the ability to reinvent themselves after pain, to be reborn after losses, to find strength in places where many would simply give up. They fall, but they always return different, deeper, more aware, more true. Yet the challenge walks beside this greatness, because changing so many times can make people around them feel as if they never truly knew them. It can seem unstable, unpredictable, even contradictory, but it is not falsehood. It is rebirth. Scorpio is constantly removing masks they did not even know they were wearing. They are abandoning versions that no longer match their soul. And that takes courage. Perhaps more than any other sign, they understand that growing hurts. That evolving demands farewells. That discovering inner truth can mean leaving behind what was comfortable. So yes, sometimes you will feel like you lost the map to this heart. But the truth is that they are also redrawing their own path. And maybe that is exactly what makes them so magnetic. Because, deep down, all of us admire those who have the courage to be reborn as many times as necessary in order to become real. Scorpio is not a mystery meant to push people away. It is an invitation for those who dare to dive. Some hide the fire, others, the water, but all love with their whole soul. Now tell me, which of these sides did you recognize yourself in? Or do you know someone who lives in this eternal rebirth? Write it in the comments, and send this video to that Scorpio who is still trying to understand themselves. And if this journey touched something inside you, receive my sincere gratitude for having walked all the way here. Scorpio never brings people together by accident. If you heard this message until the end, there is something in your soul that needed to remember these truths today. To seal this meeting of energies, write 0101 in the comments. This number is like a portal. It confirms that the message reached you and allows this vibration to reach even more people who also need to awaken. Your presence here sustains this work. When you subscribe to the channel, activate the notification bell, leave your like, and share the video, you help this current of awareness continue to expand. More people understanding themselves. More hearts awakening. More light crossing the invisible. Thank you for being part of this. See you on the next dive.